Hi guys. Gosh, it feels like a minute since I did a video. I think it's probably about a week. A lot has happened in said week. I have a new job. So today I wanted to talk about be anxious for nothing. The Bible tells us to be anxious for nothing, but in this last week, in addition to new job, catching up with a couple of friends here and there, lots of different other things I had to do. Continued with my fitness journey, got the Christmas tree up, speaking to some of my friends, even those that are believers, especially those of us who are working on new things in a new season. I can sometimes feel like there is like an anxiety attached to it, and anything new is going to have its anxieties attached. But when I say be anxious for nothing, understand that God's got you. Like oftentimes when things don't come through or go our way or come through quick enough, we just stop believing. So going for this new role, it's funny because I had felt God lead me to get in a part-time job in order to start again. It goes back to my video about baby steps and just not being afraid of starting humble. And I had felt him say to get the job because not only does he take care of us in our new seasons, he takes care of our current seasons, our finances. And it's, I'm not saying everyone who starts a business new needs to have a job as a backup, but in changing season, he's going to make provisions for the things we need to cover now. I am a mum, I have responsibilities. So, him saying to me, get the job, is not only to get the experience in this new field, but also so I can make sure I can maintain my household. So he leads me to getting a job, and I start looking. I start looking in the field that I'm hoping to move into. Now, obviously, my experience is limited because I haven't worked in said field. I've worked in like adjacent fields, but not so much this one. And I see a job, and the hours are great. The logistics are perfect because it's not far. And so I'm like claiming this job. I'm like, yep, that is the one. I fill out the application form, quite a long application form, but I'm there selling myself, yeah. And I actually didn't hear back from them. I didn't hear back from them. And so I also applied for another job that I do have some experience in, but it's definitely not a forward step. It was a backward step. Got an interview for that, but I didn't actually get that role. And I didn't really want it because it wasn't in the direction I was going in. And then there was another role. So it was three jobs I applied for. This third role, when I saw it, it kind of spoke to me, but I didn't think much of it. However, I looked at the application process, and because there wasn't a long application form to fill in, I decided to apply. I just had to send my cover letter and CV. Now, that easiness, I just decided to apply, but I wasn't excited about it. Lo and behold, they called and I had the first interview. Now, with the first interview, they told me more about the role. And in doing so, it definitely piqued my interest a lot more. And then I had my second interview, and then they called to say I got the role and I've signed the contract. But what's funny is that first interview, I almost didn't even show up because I wasn't blown away by it. I felt after the first interview, I kind of thought I probably will get that second interview because based on the things God had been speaking into my heart about assignments, about new seasons, it definitely was way more in line with it. And actually, having reviewed it after the first interview, I knew straight away that this was a much better role, a better paying role, a lot more flexibility. And also, in terms of this new career that I'm stepping into, which is health and wellness, just to put it out there, what I'm able to gain and experience in this particular role speaks a lot more directly to what I'm hoping to move in, as opposed to the other role, which was a little bit more clinical, and that's not where I'm going with things. And so I say this to say, be anxious for nothing. If I was in my feelings, if I was like, oh, I'm so set on that role, if I had taken, you know, not hearing back as some form of rejection, I really could have overlooked this role that I have now secured. And I don't think it's a consolation prize at all. I think this is a much more suited role, but God knew that. I think had I secured an interview for the first job, I possibly would have got the job, and God knew. And that's why they didn't call back. And he knows, I just love him because his ways aren't our ways, and he definitely knows what we need in these seasons. Because as long as you're doing your bit, he's got you. We can't be so hell bent on every movement we make that we think we're making in faith coming to pass. Like, okay, I'm walking with God, so if I go for that job, I'm going to get it. It doesn't work like that. There are steps to this. And sometimes what we think we're hearing, sometimes it's our own doing. Because, like I said, the logistics of the role, the convenience of the role was what made me decide to claim it before it was mine. So, speaking to some of my friends, I can see people are going through it. There's a lot of changes within society at the moment. You know, we've got a new government ourselves. People have said they wanted Labour for the longest. Now, I'm not going to get into politics, but I know the changes and the new policies that come in with a new government, it affects everybody in different ways. And so I know there's a lot of angst as to how to, you know, navigate this new period. But listen, if you are walking with Christ, it doesn't matter who's in which party is in power, because God has got you. It's about stepping into purpose. There is a reason we're all here, and we are all on assignment. Some of us, you know, we haven't got to that place of belief yet, and therefore we're trying to navigate other things. It could be our mental, it could be our physical, it could be family, it could be addiction, it could be anything. So obviously overcome those things first, but don't be so put down by your struggle to think for a moment that you can't be used based on that. And don't for a minute, if you are coming to God, think that he is not going to make a way. My health and wellness journey started from a place of obedience, started from a place of inconvenience. A lot of our God assignments are wrapped in inconvenience, in things we don't want to do. The thing that led me to it, I did not step into. God had to tell me 3 times. The first 2 times, I had no interest because I was in a quiet season and it required me to lead others. And I didn't really want to have to be in other people's business. But after the 3rd time of him speaking it into my heart, out of obedience, I decided to. And I quickly learned this whole thing is bigger than us. It was never about me, it's bigger than us. And through doing that, and it wasn't in a work setting, it was just in a personal setting. After doing that for some years, I realized I'm passionate about people, supporting people to reach their goals, especially when it comes to health and wellness. And that can be fitness goals, that could be mental fitness goals, you know, being able to exercise emotional intelligence and emotional independence and not be so moved by the things that happen in our lives that we just don't feel like we can climb or take those steps. That's something that is dear to my heart based on the experience that I had in leading a group. So, and that was God. And listen, working for myself for the last couple of years has been fine in terms of finances, but it's bigger than that. I mean, when you don't have any passion or real love for what you're doing, it's just a wage and you're just existing. And I love that by me coming to God with a humble heart and an open heart, he was able to assist me in making this career shift, but it didn't have to cause disruption to my life. And that's the peace that we have when we are with him and walking in right standing with him. I think all too often we have an idea of what our next steps are going to look like. And when it doesn't immediately look like that, we feel as though God has failed us or he hasn't come through. And that is not the case. His ways are not our ways, and he knows what we need. So sometimes what might look like rejection, what might look like a no, is in fact not yet or not that way. And so we have to keep a humble heart and keep our hearts open and postured towards him so that we can hear the Holy Spirit when he's saying, no, but do this. And sometimes it's just the smallest of change or navigation that you need to do in order to work towards or get another step towards what it is you want to do. So I say this to say, be anxious for nothing. And this, you can apply this to so many areas of your life. I mean, I've seen, with my friends, catching up with friends of late, there's so many things, it could be relationship and a husband. Well, I've been single for 4 years and I've been abstinent, so I'm due my husband now. God's ways are not our ways. Sometimes it's a case of, but what have you done in that 4 years? It may be bigger than just abstaining and being single. Have you tapped into your purpose in terms of work? Have you taken care of your finances or got your house in order? There are so many other factors that play into the things that God gives us and God affords us. We've got our part to play as well. But what I will say is, if you're doing the work and you're taking those steps, listen, we serve such a faithful God. He will not, under any circumstances, leave us hanging. And I think where some of us have been let down by man so much, we believe that when we don't see the fruit straight away, God has done us like we've been done by man in the past. But God is not a man that he should lie. And that's where, if you don't see the fruit, you do have to look at yourself and your own movements. And I know that's difficult for the average person to do. I know it is, but what comes from it on the other side is beautiful. Because when you take a step back and you assess things, you will know that he's there. You will understand that he is guiding your steps. But sometimes we get into our own heads about what it is we want for ourselves, that we're not willing to shift, we're not willing to adapt, we're not willing to move. And that's not obedience, and that's not faith. Walk by faith, not by sight. That means to walk without knowing what's around the corner, but believing that God's got you. And so let's get out of the, turning up on Sunday, singing worship songs, praising hands, but then going back into worry about finances, depression about relationship, anxiety about next steps, career, and all the rest of it. Let's get out of the habit of doing that and have the worship. And as soon as you leave, sup with the Lord, sit with him and say, okay, where do we go now? How do we move now? That didn't look like how I thought it would, but I still believe you, God. I still believe you, Father. I know you've got me. And he will show you. And it's not, it's this is listen, this faith walk isn't unicorns. I know he gives us a peace in our trials and tribulations, but we're still going to face hard times. Understand that anything that's required of you from God is going to more than often be uncomfortable. There has never been an assignment he has given me that's been wrapped in comfort. I'm telling you, almost every assignment that's of him is going to be wrapped in some element of discomfort. But nothing great comes from comfort zones. And so you step out, you understand that he will equip you accordingly. He will give you the tools that you need. And in doing so, you'll be fine. You will be okay. But you have to take those steps. So yes, I encourage you to be anxious for nothing. Understand we serve a faithful God who knows what we need way more than what we think we need. Because that's the thing, we think we know, but a lot of the things we think we need are based on the societal pressures from the world. Why do you think you need to be married now? Why do you think you need to have that career change now? Why do you think you need that new car, new house right now when finances aren't there? It's because of societal pressures. But when you take that out of the mix and you sup with the Lord and walk with God, and listen, it's not about He's going to leave us destitute and struggling. I can attest that in my faith walk, whilst He expects me to sacrifice in some seasons, whilst He expects me to cut back and be sensible and not be frivolous with certain blessings in certain seasons, He ain't never left us destitute, not even a little bit. So that's another lie. But He does expect us to be able to go through some seasons of lack so that when He gives us more, He knows we're going to steward it and do the right things with it. And that doesn't always mean finances. That could be in abundance of love, in abundance of a career, in abundance of blessings in, another form. So just understand we serve such a faithful God. Stop living in angst and stop trying to go ahead of Him. Trust His timing. Stop trying to go ahead of Him because you believe you need that thing now, or because you feel like you've waited enough. Because the thing is, we can go ahead of Him. Many of us have. I'm guilty. Look at me claiming up the job that wasn't even mine. Imagine I'd got it. It would have been okay, but it definitely wouldn't have escalated this new season the way this other role was going to. And that's the thing. When we go ahead of Him, things often don't go as they should. And then what happens? We either have to come back to Him in humility so He can now direct our steps and we're delayed, or some of us will get in our feelings and blame Him, like He told us to go for that relationship when you had no business, when you did not vet the person, but you were rushing because you believed you'd waited long enough. So I hope this hasn't been too much of a ranty video or that I've gone off on a tangent, but I just think it's important. I mean, listen, the patience and love God has shown me this last week has been wonderful, but it's also taken for me I can honestly say the reason I was able to laugh about the job not calling me back or is because I trust Him. Because I trust Him, I didn't even bat an eyelid when I didn't hear from them because I trust Him, and for whatever reason I know that role was not for me. So yes, but I hope everyone is well. I don't know what this new season of YouTube videos looks like for me. I'm back again obviously, but this was not something that was on the horizon. I'm not social media savvy. I absolutely love my private life. I love to just do me, but I do feel led to share because I see that there is a lot of anxiety around and people worried or people feeling like they have to manipulate situations in order to get, and that's not the way. So yes, I hope everybody is well, and hopefully I will get to check in or touch base again this week. But until then, look after yourselves and seek God first. Take care. Bye.